The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. Tonight we will not have an article, but tonight I needed to talk to you guys about something that is extraordinarily important. Now, if you're watching this as a replay of the show on YouTube, then you already know what the show's about. For those listening on the radio, tonight's show is going to be about the massive food shortages that are coming. And when I tell you that, I'm not trying to scare you. I want to say that right off the bat, so nobody gets the wrong idea. This isn't fear porn. This isn't me trying to sensationalize something to get more views or better ratings on the radio or whatever. This is a serious issue that we're going to have to deal with. Now, to start this off, it has to do with the economy and with inflation. Inflation has gotten to the point here in the United States of America that everything is way more expensive. Fuel costs are way more expensive, everything. With that, the cost of fertilizer has absolutely gone through the roof. I mean, it is insane how much it costs now. I'll give you a good example of this. To buy a bay of fertilizer, like a bay in your barn that you would use to fertilize a normal sized commercial farm. Last year it cost about 18 grand for the fertilizer that it would take to fertilize a farm's worth of corn. This year that same amount of fertilizer is a little bit over $40,000. For 275 gallons of Roundup, which is about what you would use, last year it was $4,900. This year it is just over $14,000 for that same amount of Roundup. Now what that means is that corn, which takes a lot of fertilizer in order to grow it properly, corn is no longer profitable for farmers to grow because the commodity prices haven't gone up to match inflation. So if a farmer is to grow corn like they normally would every year, they are not only going to not make a profit now because of inflation, but they're actually going to lose money on the crop. So what we're finding is that a lot of farmers have decided that they are not growing corn this year because they're going to lose money. So instead what they're doing is they are going to be buying soybean seed instead and planting that, because soybean does not take as much fertilizer to grow. So you can still make a profit off soybean because you're not spending near the amount of money that you would spend for corn on your fertilizer. The problem with that is because there is such an explosion of demand for soybean seed, the supply does not match the demand. So there's not enough to go around. So not everybody is going to be able to grow soybean that wants to. And the people that do get to grow it, the price of the soybean seed is going to end up going up substantially because the demand is going to be through the roof for it. So that's going to cut the profit margin on soybean as well. But the corn is the important part here because corn is in absolutely everything. And before we started adding corn to our fuel supply as ethanol, it was already in everything. So now you're taking part of your corn harvest and you are using that to produce ethanol to mix in with your gasoline. So that takes a little bit of the corn out of the supply as well. If you look on pretty much any label in the supermarket, you're going to find corn in some shape or form, whether it is actual corn or whether it is corn syrup that's going to be used to sweeten things. It's in pretty much everything that you buy. So you're going to be looking at a whole lot of stuff that is not going to be in the supermarket anymore because there isn't going to be the corn to make it or the corn to create the sweetener to make it. Also, corn of lower quality is used as animal feed in everything from chickens to hogs to even cattle in the sweet feed for cattle. So you're going to be looking at a shortage of different meat as well because they're not going to have that corn for animal feed. Now you'll still be able to feed cows hay and alfalfa and just grass and stuff. So you will still have beef, but without the corn in the sweet feed, the beef is not going to be as big as it would have been. Now you will still have wheat, you will still have barley, you'll have different grains that will be able to be fed to the cows to make up some of that difference. But it will affect the meat supply as well because a lot of the animal feed uses low quality corn in the feed mix. So that's a problem. So you're looking at shelves that are not going to have all of the canned goods and stuff like that they had before. You're looking at a reduction in animal feed. So therefore you're going to have either a reduction in meat or the price of meat is going to go way up as well because the feed that they can get is going to cost way more. So either way you cut it, you're looking at massive food shortages that will be coming for the next harvest season. So you have a little bit of time before that gets there. We already have supply chain problems. We already have massive inflation. We already have, with all of the lockdowns and the shutdowns across the country and across the world, we already have issues with shelves that are a lot less full than they used to be, and in some cases actually empty. So there's already that issue that exists. We're going to add on top of that a massive shortage of corn on the market next harvest. And what that's going to cause is even more food shortages than before. And with the fact that we're not drilling our own oil anymore, barely, I mean, we're now dependent on foreign countries again for our oil supply and our energy needs, which is insane. We were energy independent. But because now we are not energy independent anymore and we have to rely on Middle Eastern oil to fuel our economy and keep everything running, oil has gone through the roof as well. You're talking around $20 a barrel is what it was, and some experts are saying that it might get to $150, $200 a barrel. It's already up around 100 or a little bit over 100 now. I mean, that is 5 times what it was. So it costs a lot more in fuel costs to transport everything around. It costs a lot more to run the machinery to do the harvest and to operate all of the machinery that it takes to grow our food, transport our food, cool our food, preserve our food, everything. So you're looking at a perfect storm that is going to be coming. Now, I said in the beginning, I'm not telling you all this to scare you. That's not my intention. Because fear does nobody any good. When you get scared, you start to panic. And when you panic, you don't think rationally and you make stupid decisions and you buy a trailer load of toilet paper or something dumb like that and nobody else has it. You cause shortages as well. Now, when this starts to happen, you are going to see some panic shopping from people. That will make the shortages way worse. Because instead of everybody just getting what they need and trying to get by, you're going to have people that go in and just buy it all. And then you're not going to have anything. Like I said, we're looking at the worst of this after the next harvest season. So you have a little bit of time. So what can you do to make sure that you're going to be okay for this? Well, the obvious answer there is you need to prepare. You need to stockpile a little bit. Now, when I say stockpile, please don't get the wrong idea. I don't want you to go out and buy $10,000 worth of food right now. Don't do that, because all you're going to do is cause shortages now. But what I'm saying is you can buy a little bit extra every week and put it back. Now, in order to do that, you're going to have to know what kind of foods that you can buy that will last. Because you're looking at least a year. At least. If things get fixed, at least a year. Because you're going to have one harvest that's just going to be screwed. So hopefully we can get things back on track before the next harvest season. And then there'll be an influx of corn. Prices will go down. There will be the supply again, hopefully. If we can get things going again. If not, then you're looking at a way worse problem. But some of the things that you can buy, you're going to want to buy things that are shelf stable, that do not go bad. You're looking at dehydrated food. You're looking at stuff like rice and noodles and stuff like that. And a great example that's really cheap is ramen noodles. You can buy like a 12-pack of ramen noodles for $1 something. You can buy a couple of those a week extra and just put them back. And then you have them. One box of 12, if you're rationing it with 2 meals a day, that's 6 days worth right there. So you got pretty much a week for a person, for a box that you buy for $1 something. That's not bad. Now, it's not the greatest food in the world. Granted, it's just noodles, but it'll keep you alive. You got stuff like dried beans that you can buy in the grocery stores. And they have all kinds of different varieties of beans that are dried. Those things are not going to go bad right away. So what you can do is you can buy a little bit of extra and put back so that your family has it. Things like the boxes of macaroni and cheese, the boxes of pasta, all of those kind of things. Canned goods last a fairly good amount of time. So those are the kind of things you're going to want to start getting and putting back. Now, if you want to get a little bit more advanced into it, you can really start to put a good amount of food back. Buy yourself a dehydrator. You can go to Walmart. You can buy it on Amazon. They sell the Sunbeam brand of dehydrator or something along those lines that is that same level of dehydrator for anywhere from $30 to $50, $60. So they're not extremely expensive. And it's extremely easy to put back a lot of food quickly. If you get yourself a dehydrator, what you're going to do is you're going to separate the trays out. It usually comes with like 5, 6, or 7 trays, depending on which one you buy. And you go to your grocery store, wherever you shop, and you go to the frozen food section. And you're going to want to look at the big bags of frozen vegetables. 1 pound of frozen vegetables in the bag is going to do a tray. Okay, so buy yourself several. If you buy the big bag, it's going to take 2 trays per bag. But buy yourself whatever vegetables you like. I normally do mixed vegetables because you can take the mixed vegetables, you can make that into vegetable soup. There's a lot of different variety there in the mixed vegetable. You get a lot better nutrition than you would just from corn or just from peas or carrots or whatever. But whatever you like. Buy your frozen vegetables, put them on the dehydrator trays, level them out, stack the trays up like you're supposed to, put the lid on, plug it in, leave it overnight. In anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, depending on what you're dehydrating, it'll be dehydrated. They'll be dried and they'll be like little pebbles. They're done when they reach that point. All the moisture has been taken out of it. And then you can either put it into a quart jar and close the lid on it, or if you really want to put it away that'll last 50, 60 years, what you're going to do is you're going to buy yourself one of those food saver things, like the VacuSeal machines. They're not expensive either. And buy yourself the bags, and then you're going to fill the bag with your dehydrated vegetables. You're going to take an oxygen absorber, which you can buy on Amazon for pennies. I mean, they're really cheap. You can buy them in big lots of like 100, 500, 1,000 of them for like 10 or 20 bucks. They're not expensive at all. Take one of those oxygen absorbers, put it in the bag with the vegetables, and then you're going to vacuum seal it. Vacuum sealing will suck all of the air out, and then any little tiny bit of air or moisture that is still in that bag, the oxygen absorber will take care of that. Because inside that oxygen absorber is iron oxide. And essentially what it's going to create is rust inside the pouch. Now that rust is not going to get on your food. It's in a self-contained pouch. But that will suck any moisture and any air that is residual, that is left in that bag after you vacuum sealed it. Once it gets to that point, buy yourself a bucket, like a Home Depot bucket that has a lid, like the 5-gallon paint buckets, and stack them down in that, shut the lid, put them in a dark, cool place, and you are good literally for 50 or 60 years. That will not go bad. You can keep that for the rest of your life, and you will always have a stable, safe food supply that will not go bad. Now, one thing you can do, if you do not have a dehydrator, but you do have a vacuum sealer, you can buy dried beans, you can buy oatmeal, you can buy sugar, creamer, stuff like that is already dried, rice. Put them in the vacuum seal bag, throw the oxygen absorber in, vacuum seal it, and put it away in the bucket just like I said before. And that will also last 50 or 60 years. Now, the government recommendations probably says something like 5 or 10, but I have seen personally rice and wheat and different vegetables that have been kept for decades, preserved that way. I have seen them opened up and eaten, and they are 100% fine. So it will last your lifetime if you do it right. If you dehydrate it all the way so that it's dried out, and you put the oxygen absorber in, you vacuum seal it, and you put it in a dark, cool place, it will last. Because what makes your food spoil is 2 things: air and moisture. Okay? That is what fosters the bacteria that break down your food and causes it to spoil. So if you have dried it out, you take care of the moisture problem. And if you vacuum seal it and put it away with an oxygen absorber, you take care of the air problem. So there's nothing that's going to be breaking down your food. It will be safe, and it will last you. Now, these things that you can buy a big 25 or 50 pound bag of rice at like Costco, or even Walmart sells the big bags of rice as well. You can buy those for not a lot of money, and that will last a good amount of time. So if you buy like a bag of rice a week, a couple bags of dried beans, maybe a couple boxes of ramen, you're in it for less than 50 bucks. But that food will buy you weeks worth of time. And you got to keep in mind also that there will be stuff on the shelves, just not a whole lot. So you can keep supplementing what you have back with stuff that you can find when you go to the store. But this is just a stable food supply so that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are going to be able to feed your family. Now, what that does is gives you a sense of security, and it keeps you from panicking and doing anything dumb. Because once you know that you're going to be able to provide for your family and that they will be able to eat, it doesn't matter at that point whether there's anything in the store anymore, because you're going to be okay. And there's no reason why everybody who's listening to me right now can't be okay. Even if you only have an extra 5 or 10 bucks to spend, 5 or 10 bucks will buy you 4 or 5 boxes of ramen noodles. It'll buy you several bags of rice, like the smaller bags. That will keep you fed for a while. So what I always say is do what you can. You should always have at least 2 weeks, worth of food, just for normal circumstances, for any kind of disaster that happens. And for me, I try to have enough food to feed my family for at least 6 months to a year. Because you want to make sure that if something happens, you can provide for your family. What I say is the more the better. So if you start preparing now, you get a little bit extra a week. You don't have to go crazy on it. Don't spend a ton of money. Don't waste a bunch of time and take stuff off the shelves that other people can't have. Don't hog it all down. There's no need to do that. You can get a little bit extra a week, start putting it back, start building that stockpile for your family. I would also try to get like a little bit extra Band-Aids, a little bit extra hydrogen peroxide, those kind of things. Not because I think there's going to be shortages, because I don't think there will be, but just to have that in the house is a good idea. Basic first aid supplies you should always have on hand, just in case you need them. And if you do these things, then I think that you're going to be a lot better off. And when these food shortages hit, you're going to be able to ride it out. You're not going to have to panic. You're not going to have to do what you're told so that you can get something to eat. Because I've said this before, and this is one quote that I have given that I believe is 100% true, and it is very, very profound. And that quote is, there is no security without food security. Because if you can't feed your family, you're going to do whatever the hell you got to do to feed your family. No longer are you going to be standing on principle. No longer are you going to be a free person. You're going to do whatever you have to do to make sure your children can eat. So what I'm trying to do now for everybody listening, I'm trying to warn you of what's coming. And this isn't conspiracy. This isn't tinfoil hat time. This isn't me trying to scare you or anything like that. This is looking at inflation, looking at the cost of fertilizer, and listening to these farmers who have been giving interviews with different magazines and different channels that cover farming stuff. And this is a real problem that they're talking about now, that they're not going to be able to grow corn because it's not going to be profitable at all. They're going to lose money. And a lot of these farms, especially the family farms, they're on a thin razor's line anyway, between bankruptcy and actually being able to go for another year. The margin is so slim for a lot of these farms that they can't afford to lose money, because it will literally shut down their farm that's been in their family for generation after generation. Now, some of the big corporate farms might still be okay, because they have the deep pockets. They can afford to take the loss for a year. But that's not the majority of farms. That's the minority. And this is going to be a real problem, is what I'm telling you. And it's better to go ahead and prepare now. That way, when it happens, you're going to be okay. And let's say worst case scenario, it doesn't happen. Let's say that somehow we're able to turn this all around, inflation goes away, which is not going to happen because the people who run the show right now don't know what the hell they're doing. But let's just pretend like somehow it's going to turn around. It's going to have to do that very soon, because springtime is when you're planting. And before spring, you're buying your fertilizer, you're buying your seed, you're buying your Roundup, you're buying everything you need in order to have a successful growing season. So the window to get this problem under control and get the prices down is so thin. And I honestly don't think it can be done in time. So I think we're going to have at least one season where you're going to have a massive shortage of corn. And that's going to cause all these problems that I've talked about tonight. So it's better to prepare and not need it than to need it and not have prepared. So worst case scenario, you buy a little bit extra every week. You end up not needing it. That's fine. You've got a food supply now that will last you for years and years and years, so that you know any big storm that comes, any emergency that comes, anything that happens, you know you're going to be able to feed your family. And that's worth its weight in gold. So with that being said, I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and get his opinion on all this. And then I'll be back after he is done. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. The food shortage thing. Now, I'm not a I know a lot about this. I've been talking to James for years about this. This isn't just something that's happened. This was going to come our way eventually. You guys got to realize with inflation, things go up in price. But the problem is we're not making money like we used to because, like you said, COVID, things shutting down, losing businesses, losing a bunch of money, but you can't make that up. But the problem is you have all these companies who just keep raising the price on everything. You keep wanting to raise minimum wage. California, 15 an hour. They want to do it everywhere else. I don't know what anywhere else is at, but and that's just in counties. In counties, some counties are making it 17, 18. So what you think would happen? Well, this is what happens. Yeah, you get $15 an hour, but then they cut you down to 25 hours a week to make it up. So what that means, you were making, like, say you're making $10 an hour and you're working 40 hours a week, 36 hours a week. Now you're only working about 25. So it's pretty much the same money you were making before. But what happens is they raise the price on hamburgers, meat, like he was talking about, corn. And if there's a shortage on corn, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And soybean is going to be outrageous to buy. So a lot of people eat soy. There's a lot of vegetarians. There's a lot of people who, not just that, just there's a lot of people who eat soy based, like me. I drink almond milk, but there's some people who drink soy milk. That soy is a big thing right now. If it goes up, like say you pay like soy milk, it's like a carton you pay like $4 or $5. It's gonna go up, jump $8, $9, even more. Corn is gonna be double, triple what you're paying. Even in the grocery stores now, stuff is going up. Like it isn't like you say you spent $100 2 years ago. It's about 170 now. Taxes went up, everything went up. Just to pay's not. But they expect you to live where it's almost impossible, unless you live with a bunch of people now, or you have making 100,000, 200,000 a year by yourself. And if you don't, you're going to be struggling and barely making it. Everything's going to go up. So what James is telling you now, he's giving you a heads up to what's not maybe going to happen right now. Don't go out, like he says, stop panicking. Buy what you need now, because down the line, in another couple years, things are going to get worse. And the problem is, like you said, people panic and they make it worse. People went out and bought 10 trillion things of toilet paper when they didn't really need it. Bought all kinds of Lysol, bought all kinds of food. You got to realize something. If you don't have the right equipment, it doesn't matter how much stuff you buy, it's not going to last. It'll last a month or two, unless you're a hoarder or one of these people who prep, or like James, who has enough stuff, and I'm not going to say where it's at or what. He could probably live for another 20 years, 30, even more. Plus, he knows how to grow stuff. He knows how to do a lot of things that most people don't know how to do. If you don't have that, you're going to panic and do dumb things, like everybody does. People panic. They don't know the truth or know how to deal with things, just with everything in society, and they go off the handle. So I'm not trying to scare you, neither's James, because that's not what we're trying to do on this show. We're trying to warn you. And people are going to say, oh, yeah, this ain't going to happen. Trust me, it's going to. It may not happen today or a year or two from now, but in the near future, we're going to have a shortage. We have too many people in the world as it is, and people don't know how to survive anymore like they used to. It isn't like, 1900s that, you're separated from people. There's some people live in cities, but you had to survive. You had to hunt. And there's some people who know how to do that somewhat, but majority of people live in cities or towns, and they have McDonald's, and you don't really you worry about that. I'm going to say here, 90% of people are not worried about what's going on right now. There's the 10%, and the problem is these 90% of people aren't going to know what to do and do dumb things. So that's what you have to worry about. The food shortages could be a reality. The economy, inflation is jumping. They already showed it on TV since 1983, I think, or 82. We have had such a bad inflation. I mean, they could change it. Don't think it could stay, because it has changed before. The problem is right now with everything that's going on, it's not going to change anytime soon. If they keep shutting everything down every 6 months or whatever happens, it's going to get worse. When they have everything open, then we start getting everything back. The problem is then we get nailed with something and it shuts everything down again for 3 or 4 months. It's just never going to, if we keep doing this constantly, and I understand we kind of, some parts we have to, some we don't, but it's never going to get anywhere because you're going to keep opening things for a couple months. Everything will get caught up and then you shut everything down and you'll never get caught up again. You're just going to keep going back in a circle. So you're going to have all these people gouging the market like they do with everything, with the internet, video, everything. Right now, I don't know what you guys are seeing in Canada with the strike about, it's hard to get things anyway. Even through, from the harbors and stuff, there's always things backed up because of the trade deals with China. So we're having issues everywhere right now. So it isn't just with the shortages. We're having with deliveries. We're having with everything. We're having a bunch of crises right now. Things was getting better, and now it's getting worse the last couple of years, and we all know why. We have a disease right now, a virus that is I don't care what anybody says, but it has what you believe or it has changed their lives forever, and it's never going to be the same. You got people who are going to just don't know how to handle the situation. And even if this wasn't going on, something else would have gone on. Natural disasters, things can happen. Another infectious disease could have happened. We could have all kinds of things going on. And there is a lot of other stuff going on other than that. And we could end up being in a lot of trouble, guys. James isn't trying to scare you guys. He's just telling you the truth. But we've been prepping for years. I mean, that's just how I am. I'm not as much as James is, but James has got his own things going, and that's his business. That's what he believes, and that's what he's going to do. I do it once in a while here and there. I have enough to protect myself and feed my family for a couple months. He's got stuff to protect himself for years. I know how to grow things, not like him, but I could protect myself and survive for at least 6 months or longer. Because I have people around, so actually it's probably a couple years, but I'm just not going to talk about that. I have other means and stuff like that, but some people don't, and that's what's worrisome. Because when people panic, bad things happen. People, I'm going to go. I can't get enough food, so I'm going to break into somebody's house and break in the store, and that's when bad things happen. And the government ain't going to save you because they're only going to have so many people they can stop. The military and stuff, they have their own. They have nothing to worry about. They're not going to police the world. They're going to let everybody do what they're going to do for a while, and then they'll get tired of it, and too many people will get hurt, and then they'll finally do something. But that may be too late. So what we're trying to do is warn you now. Just keep an eye on things. Things start getting worse. Start trying to, once in a while buy extra bags of rice, toilet paper, water, just once in a while. You don't have to do it like, these people are buying 500 gallons every day, and you don't have to be that extreme. There's people who are going to do that, but that they're making the problem too. They're some of the problem. They overbuy stuff, or they doing it to make money. And that's the other irritating thing. People are making money off of the situation, and that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Like James said, we're supposed to be helping each other, but people don't care. They panic. And that's a sad thing that people don't know how to survive. They're worried about themselves, and we could probably be fine if people wouldn't think the worst. And that's what the problem is. People don't think rationally. They think the worst. We could be fine if we all just sat down. I have enough food for everyone. But some people are greedy, just like with money. It's just you can't get enough. You think whoever has the power, they can control what they want and get what they want. That's what it's always going to be about. Money is bad, but in the end, it's power and control. What you can get out of it, how much you can get out of it, and you can get more of, and who you can make do what you want by your bidding, and who you can control. So, I think that. I hope you guys are listening to the show realize that we're not trying to scare anybody. We're just giving you guys awareness of what could happen. And it's already starting to happen. Oil, corn, all this stuff in fertilizer grows almost everything we have. Vegetable-wise, fruits, all kinds of stuff, nuts. berries, everything. This will be really bad. Feeding our animals, us, everything. It will not be good. It's not going to be a good day if that stuff starts happening. Where we can't even feed our animals. We can't even feed our kids. We can't even feed ourselves. We can't drive. We can't do anything. Because we use a lot of these products, corn especially. That's a big part of our lives, more than you think. So I hope you guys realize this is why we're telling you this. Inflation has destroyed other countries in the past. It has hurt our country numerous times. I just don't want to get it back where every other day we're able to get gas and that's it. You can get Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and if you're on this day, it's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and we have to sit in lines for hours to get gasoline. That could happen. It's happened in the 80s. It's happened along numerous other times. I don't ever want to see any of us have to deal with that. I know. So don't be surprised it happens again, because people don't know how to survive. They panic, and that's why we have the issues we have. And 90% of things have happened in bad situations. I'm just saying altogether is either somebody didn't get the full story, they panicked, overreacted to a situation that probably wasn't that big of a deal, but got blown out. Somebody instigated it like numerous times, or people just don't tell the truth. They lie about what the truth is. And that's why you have people who flip out, and there's bad things that happen. I'm just showing you an example. That's to this whole thing is I've always believed one day this was going to happen. And it is. So if I was you, start watching what's going on. Don't always believe the news. Everybody knows which side. I'm not saying go listen to this channel or that channel. Just see what's going on with the news and how people are acting and how inflation is happening and how things are shortage in the store where you can't buy stuff. Now, I haven't really had a problem here in California, but I know there's other places it's harder to get stuff. But when this was all first going on, it was hard to get water. It was hard to get toilet paper. It was hard to get disinfectants. It was hard to get food. Meat was getting bought out. And people just don't realize. They just hurry up and think the worst, and they go and listen to the radio or the news or the internet. People jump to conclusion with misinformation. And that's what's going to happen. Then you have idiots running around doing dumb things. So please listen to this show. Tell us what you think. Give us comments. We always like to hear what you guys think. You know, I'm not saying it's the end of the world thing, but it's just something that could happen. There are food shortages. It do happen. So let us know what you think in the comments and try to be cool. I know somebody's going to say something. Oh, this, that. I don't care. Just be cool about it. If not, we'll just delete you. But other than that, there you go, brother.
Inflation is a direct result of the devaluing of the currency. When you print tons and tons of extra money, which has been happening, the total supply of your money becomes much larger. But what that causes is the value of the individual dollar to decrease. What also decreases is the buying power of that dollar. That's what that means. That's why you have inflation. Now, the way they used to solve this problem when it would happen is they raise interest rates. That sucks out of the economy extra money. They destroy that money, thus shrinking the supply. That raises the individual value of each dollar. The problem is, they did this in the 70s. When we went off the gold standard here in America, they had to do this because inflation went through the roof. But the problem is, now we are carrying $30 trillion of debt. We weren't carrying $30 trillion in debt in the 70s. And if you remember correctly, the presidency, if you're old enough to remember the presidency of Jimmy Carter, You had lines for gasoline. You had certain days you were allowed to get gas and only so many gallons. You would wait in line for hours to get 5 gallons of gas, which isn't even enough to fill up your tank. Things were bad. But we were able to turn it around. When Reagan came into office, he was able to turn around by lowering taxes, jumpstarting the economy, raising interest rates, which sucked that extra money out and got things rolling again. The problem is if you try to raise the interest rates too much with $30 trillion of debt, it's a nightmare scenario. You could potentially be looking at a real serious problem. I'm talking the complete and total collapse of the economy. That is a possibility. Now, I'm praying that doesn't happen, but it has happened in the past. I'll tell you the story really quickly of a little place called the Weimar Republic. The Weimar Republic went through a lot of this same stuff, and their money got devalued to the point to where they were literally taking wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a single egg or a single loaf of bread. When you would go to work in the morning, your boss would pay you at lunchtime because by the end of the workday, the money had already been devalued to the point to where he would have had to pay you almost double. That's how serious things got. Their economy collapsed. Their money collapsed. Complete monetary collapse. And they ended up starting a new currency to fix the problem. It was bad. That could happen here as well. People think that nothing bad like that's ever going to happen here in America because we've always had it good. That's what people think. But they forget that we haven't always had it good. A lot of people are too young to remember the 70s. The 70s were pretty bad. And even older people would remember, like my grandparents' generation, they lived through the Great Depression. And what we're looking at now economically is a lot like 1929. So it could be a serious problem. The only thing you can do is prepare the best you can. Now, to end this, I don't want to end this on doom and gloom. I want to give you some advanced pro tips here from somebody who does this all the time. I talked earlier about buying the bags of frozen vegetables and dehydrating them. Then you might say, okay, now I've got a bunch of bags of dehydrated vegetables. What the hell do I do with them? Well, you can simply put them in a pot of boiling water and rehydrate them and eat them. You can make soups and stews out of them. That's the best way to use them. But another thing you can do is you can actually use them to make bread, which is a really cool thing. The bread that we eat now is primarily made out of grain. Okay, you have your wheat, you have your oats, you have oats, not really a grain, but they do make bread out of oat. You have rye, you have stuff like that that is used to make the breads that we eat now, usually. Corn also is used to make cornbread. But much like you're doing cornbread, you can do that with any other vegetable you want. If you have dehydrated your vegetables and you have them in their dehydrated state, you can take them and you can put them into a coffee grinder or a spice grinder and grind them up into a powder. Mix that powder with a little bit of water, make a dough, and you can literally make bread out of any vegetable that you dehydrate. It's not going to be exactly like the bread you're used to eating. If you do not have yeast, it is not going to rise. You're not going to have a nice fluffy bread. But what you will have is either tortilla or you will have like a flat bread, like a pita bread, that you can use your vegetables in that way as well to make bread with. That's the first pro. The second thing that I want to talk to you about is a couple other foods that a lot of people don't think about that are really good for prepping. Now, I talked about rice. I talked about vegetables. I talked about beans. I talked about oatmeal, right? You can buy oatmeal and vacuum seal that as well. But another thing that is something that is very good to prep, if you know how, is eggs. And you might say, well, how in the hell are you going to prep eggs that'll last long term? Because eggs don't last that long. And I'm not talking about pickling them either. This is a cool thing. Now, if you have bought your dehydrator, you will know that the trays have holes. And there's a little insert that goes in over the trays that also has holes, just smaller holes. And that's what you pour your vegetables onto, or you put your fruits on, or your meat, or whatever, and you dehydrate that. But you can also do eggs in your dehydrator. They make a thing that they call a fruit roll-up tray. And what that is used for is for taking like fruit juice and like an applesauce kind of mix, and you put that in the fruit roll-up trays in your dehydrator, and it makes basically fruit roll-ups, what they call fruit leather. But you can use those fruit roll-up trays to dehydrate eggs as well. What you're going to do is you're going to crack your eggs into a bowl and mix them up like you're going to make scrambled eggs. Okay, you're not adding milk, you're not adding any fats. It's only the egg by itself. You're going to whisk that up so that it's the same consistency that you would make scrambled eggs out of. You're going to pour that egg mix into your fruit roll-up trays on your dehydrator, stack them up like normal, plug it in, and let it run. When it is finished, what you're going to end up with is something that is going to be like a hard candy shell of a candy apple. It's going to be flaky when you break it apart, but it's going to be the eggs that is dehydrated. All the moisture is going to be taken out of it. You take that, you empty it into a bowl. You take like a potato masher is a good way to do it, or a spoon, and you just smash all that up so it's smaller. You take that and you put it into your coffee grinder or your spice grinder, and you grind it into a powder. Once you get your egg powder, you're going to put that in your vacuum seal bags just like you do with everything else. You're going to put your oxygen absorber in there. You're going to vacuum seal that bag. What you have now is eggs that are going to last you decades if you've done it correctly. If you have all of the moisture out of it, if you have the oxygen absorber in the bag and it's vacuum sealed properly, it's going to last a long, long time. Now, to make that into eggs you're going to eat for breakfast, you're going to cut open your bag, you're going to take a couple spoonfuls of it, put it in a bowl, put water in it, mix it around until it looks like what you would normally use to make scrambled eggs with. At that point, you can add whatever you want to it once it's that consistency again. And then you're going to pour it in your pan and do it up just like you would your scrambled eggs normally. You can literally stockpile eggs in powder form and rehydrate them and make scrambled eggs, and you can barely tell the difference. And that will last you years and years and years. Now, the great thing about that is it's an easy food, and eggs are a superfood. Eggs not only contain protein, which is so important, but also they contain something called vitamin K, which there's not very many sources of vitamin K in nature. So that is very, very important for you for your long-term survival, because you're going to want nutrition. You're going to want a variety of things that you can eat that are going to be good. And eggs are a brilliant way to do so. Now, if you are somebody like me who has land and you live out in the mountains or the country somewhere and you can get a chicken coop and get yourself some chickens, then you're going to have a massive supply of eggs all the time. So that's a great way to use those extra eggs, is to dehydrate them and make egg powder that you can use later. You can also use that egg powder in any recipe you're making, like cakes and brownies and all that kind of stuff. You can use it just like you would eggs. Easy cheesy, no problem. Meats as well. You can dehydrate any meat in your dehydrator, and the rule of thumb for meat is in between 2 and 5 years if dehydrated properly. The reason for that is fat will make your stuff spoil. So you're going to want to trim away every little bit of fat you can possibly find off your meat before you dehydrate it. Because any amount of fat that you are leaving in there and dehydrating is going to make it spoil. And that sucks. So you're going to want to trim all that away best you can, but still there's going to be fat inside you're not going to be able to get to. That's why 2 to 5 years is the guideline for dehydrated meat. But you can dehydrate beef, chicken, fish, anything you want. Any kind of meat you eat, you can put in a dehydrator, dehydrate it, make it hard as a rock. And the best way to eat that stuff later, honestly, is to stew or a soup out of it, because you're going to want to cook that for a long time in water so it rehydrates and gets tender. So I hope that you guys have learned something tonight from this. I hope that you take some of this advice and you put it to use in your life. And when this happens, you're going to be okay because you will have prepared. And you're going to have a hell of a lot of peace of mind knowing that whatever comes your way, you're going to have food and you're going to be able to survive. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy so he can give his final sum up and shout outs.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys enjoyed the show on ParaX Radio. I hope you guys enjoyed our shows every Sunday and Tuesday, because we do the best of on Tuesday at ParaX Radio. You guys want to listen to our new and old shows, go to James Hersey's YouTube page and subscribe. You guys want any merchandise, I'll tell you where to go. There's a lot of things coming up, guys. A lot of surprises, and I'll tell you guys soon. And James is going to be doing a lot of things too. And I'm telling you, we're really starting to blow up. And I can't wait. It's going to be a great adventure, and I can't wait for all this stuff that's coming. And you guys will too. So that being said, I hope everybody has a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you, and blessed be, and have a great night.
One thing that I would like to say at the end of this show is we've got to find a way to get along better with each other, and just a better way to do things. Any way you cut it, no matter what, we're going to have some rough time ahead, because we have done serious damage with all of the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of little landmines that have been planted that are just waiting to go off, such as this issue that we're talking about tonight with inflation and corn and all that. There's several things like that that are going to cause major problems. But if we prepare and if we stay calm, we'll get through it. And if we help each other and love each other again, we can all get through it a lot easier. And going forward, we have to find a way, because we're going to be rebuilding this world. And when we rebuild this world, we should find a way to do it to where we can all live and be happy again. And not be at each other's throats, not hate each other, not argue constantly about every damn thing. Every single one of us, when you boil it down, wants the same things out of life. We all want to be safe. We all want to be happy. We all want our children to be fed and to have a good life and to be safe from harm. Whether you are an American like we are, or whether you are Canadian or from Mexico or Europe or Russia or wherever, we're all the same when you really boil it down to what we really want out of life. And there's no reason why we can't just get along and not judge each other all the time and hate each other all the time. Now, I think that a lot of the problems that we experience in the world, a lot of the strife and the arguing and the fighting and all that stuff, I think a lot of that is caused on purpose by people that have an interest in us not getting along. And I think that will be coming to an end. And when it does, we just have to remember that we're all brothers and sisters. Whether you are religious like I am and believe in God and that we were created and we're all part of the same family, or whether you believe in evolution or some other offshoot of whatever. Either way, we all came from a single pair at some point. Science backs that up. That at one point there was two of us, one male, one female, and they reproduced and made the first babies that were us. So we're all related. Whether you're religious, whether you're not, we are all related. And it's time for us to start acting like family again. I said in the beginning of the show, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not. I'm trying to give you a chance to not only survive, but to get through what's coming without panicking and without worrying about your family's survival because they can't eat. I love you. And I'll be praying for you. And I just want to say as I close that the sun will come up tomorrow. We will be okay. We'll get to the other side of all this. And when we get there, let's build a world worth living in, where we can all love each other and follow our dreams and be happy. So with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Till I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.